Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. Of course, this is the podcast where we sample the television goods and give you a taste of what we have got going for us. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me, of course, Grace Leeder. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well. I've got a lot of feedback after our recap pod of the House of the Dragon finale, Taran. People are like, you guys didn't fight at all. There was no action. You just talked the whole time and basically set up the next podcast. That's what everybody said. I said, well, yeah, that's what we did. That's what we do. We're just taking the lead from House of the Dragon.
Yeah, they were like, oh man, all that build up to the finale podcast, and you just kind of like, that's it.
You kind of agreed with each other most of the time. You just talked. Like, I don't know. People didn't like that. They wanted us to fight, Taran.
Yeah. Sorry.
Next time. Next season.
Well,
next season.
That is kind of the first headline of the day. Of course, we're going to talk about some TV news. We want to sort of like keep you abreast of the various happenings in the world of entertainment. And there's some interesting things to talk about here. One of which is, of course, House of the Dragon, where in the finale, no spoilers. If you want detailed stuff about House of the Dragon, you can check out our House of the Dragon coverage. However, basic headline here for House of the Dragon season 2, I think for the most part is kind of like people being like that's it.
That's literally the Hollywood Reporter headline. There it is. House of the Dragon fans upset by season 2 finale. Quote, wait, that's it? Unquote.
Yeah, I feel like would not surprise me if some people watched the finale not realizing it was the finale, and then maybe are still hoping to see what happens next week.
I think Taran, before we recorded, I had what for me is a bit of a daunting thing, because there was a neighborhood get together. Okay, so a neighbor down the street bought some pizza, had some beer and wine, and invited everybody from the neighborhood over to come. And of course, then people ask, what do you do when they're getting to know you? And then I say, I work at this organization, I work for a nonprofit, and I podcast about TV and movies. And they go, oh, what should I watch? Which, is the premise of the podcast. Yeah. But then, it's, there's still some, it's like, okay, so what else do you like? But I did inform some people that I had to leave early the party because I was going to watch House of the Dragon and podcast about it, and saying it was the finale. And they said, oh, it's the finale. It's only been 8 episodes. I said, yeah, that's what they're doing this season. And so I think I actually set some people up for some maybe the wrong expectations, maybe that they were expecting quite a filling finale. And it was not. I think the best take I've seen that I resonate, Taran, with, great episode of television, a tremendous episode of House of the Dragon, and maybe a weird finale.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And we talked about it last night. So again, if you want like detailed thoughts on the finale, feel free to check out the coverage that we have already put out there. But this seems to be kind of a trend, and I think it's especially jarring with how short seasons have been lately, and how long the wait is in between seasons. That when you do have a season that feels maybe it's a little more setup-y, it's hitting harder. It feels worse. Where even when you have, and we've talked about it, and I still haven't gotten there yet, but when you have a show that is coming out yearly, like The Bear, people were still frustrated with season 3 not feeling like a complete season of television. And I think that this is just kind of becoming more and more commonplace as shows have become more movie-like. And weirdly that means less complete. So yeah. I think it's a fair criticism. I think that it does mean that the watching experience in the moment is not as good. Does it impact the rewatchability? That's a bigger question, I think. Or the bingeability, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, interesting news today as well. Ryan Condal came out. This is funny because the initial headline that I kept seeing was like, basically says, don't worry, season 3 will have so much action. You won't even believe how that's what it's all going to be about, which is very funny because I think that like whether or not they said that about season 2, that was the feeling about season 2. It was like, yeah, we did all the setup and now we're going to get to the action. And then this season was so much setup for now action in season 3. I mean, we did get some stuff halfway through the season. I think probably for some people would be the high of the season, is that episode 4 episode. But he also announced that season 4 will be the last season, Taran. And I think along the lines of The Boys, before, this is obviously, that was sort of right before season 4 came out. They're like, season 5 will be the last. So a little different in terms of how much time we have. But I think in a way that feels like I almost feel like they must have kind of known this might be the reaction they were going to get. And it almost does feel like, in the world where they were informed that they did not have 10 episodes this season, actually had 8, that they actually didn't change anything about like episodes 1 through 8. It's a little bit the sentiment I keep hearing a little bit too, is like, man, that feels like there should be like 2 more episodes, like we just were sort of gearing up for this big moment that in a Game of Thrones show would be the penultimate episode of the season. And then we sort of have like the come down and set up for the next season. And it almost feels like they were like literally chopped those last 2 episodes. And they're like, that'll be for next time. I believe, did Severance do this as well? That they had a 10 episode. I'm trying to remember. There's something with Severance where like, it was going to be 10 episodes, then it was 9, and they literally took that 10th episode and like pushed it. Trying to remember a little bit, but I think the thing of being like coming out with a statement the next day, being like, don't worry, next season will be action packed, and it will be action packed because there's actually only 2 more seasons to go of the show, feels a little PR move to a degree, to sort of satiate the people who would come out last night and this morning being like, I don't know. I think you and I both liked it. But there is a weird atmosphere around House of the Dragon, I think, this morning.
Well, I think there's clearly a strategy now. I think The Boys announcing the final season definitely helped the ratings of season 4, which were up from season 3 pretty dramatically. And it now feels like this is an ace in our pocket that we can play at any time. And it's interesting to me that they played it now instead of waiting until the release of season 3, where like, that's what The Boys did with the release of season 4. They said there's 1 more season after this one. Watch this one now, and they got a big boost. So it's interesting to me that they didn't wait until starting to release season 3, where maybe they could have like capitalized on the boost of, hey, there's only 1 more season after this. Stuff's gonna definitely happen. That they maybe felt like they needed the PR now to keep people from being too anti House of the Dragon. I don't know. I don't know if that timing if this is the best timing or if they should have waited for this announcement. But either way, I think we are now aware. Season 4, the final season, and I'm personally excited to watch the final 2 seasons. I still really enjoy the show, but definitely facing a lot of heat overall.
Well, it's House of the Dragon. Of course, they're going to face some heat, Taran. But no, I think this feels a little reactionary, and I think I don't think they're blissfully otherwise like everyone will love that we didn't have a big action sequence in the last episode. Like, I think he knew, and this is full PR to be like, don't worry though. They did another thing too. We're going to talk a lot today, I think, about like teasers, the trailers. They are like, here's more Game of Thrones stuff they're going to get next year. Don't worry. Like, there's more to come. If you were unsatisfied, they're sort of like teasing us with the next best thing, which I think in a lot of media is often, and I think we'll talk about as we like talk about like trailers in general today and teasers a little bit of like, there is kind of nothing better than like the hype and speculation of like what could be, and like your favorite show is about to come back and you're like, this is what they could be doing. And I think especially this that is based on such a, I think they've redeemed it a little bit, but like IP that is quite still, I think, beloved, and a book that people are very excited to like figure out what's happening. Now people get to play in like 2 years of like, this is what they could do when they come back, which is also the worst thing for the show because it sets expectations. So
yeah, it's interesting. And I don't think that they knew when they made the season that people would be reacting this way, but I think probably very quickly when the season started and people were complaining that it was not feeling like it was picking up the pace enough, they realized, oh crap, we messed up. And basically in this article, Ryan Condal talks about how from at least the PR reason that the season ended the way that it did, is that they wanted to make sure that they were going to do justice to uh, when the action pieces do come hard and heavy, and that they felt like they didn't have enough time to do that at the end of season two. And so, you know, I mean, sure, that's fair. I'm fine with it as somebody that's I think feeling kind of patient, but I think they clearly messed up a bit here, and they're definitely trying to recover from that. And part of that recovery, I think, also it very clearly feels like they were prepped to, like, okay, people are going to be disappointed by this. So what can we do? They were prepped with a teaser. They were prepped with season four is the final season, and they were also prepped with, hey, look how much other fun stuff is
Yeah.
coming soon.
Yeah. Just all day today, people, like, I just saw the like influx of like, here's the trailer for this, here's the trailer for this. There really is not a lot of, they're really not trailers. They're packaged together in a basically like everything gets a small teaser is basically how I would describe it. I don't know if those are the technical terms. I think so, where it's really not telling you that much other than like this thing is coming. Almost none of it has dates either. They're sort of bucketed into three categories, Taran. This like video package they put together, which is sort of HBO originals that are coming soon, and then Max originals, and then shows that are coming in 2025, which I think is an interesting way to break it down. I will say, I'm very excited for a lot of stuff that was in this video package. So I'm excited to sort of talk it through. I think for me, unless do you have a headline from this group, Taran?
I mean, I think it's not really a surprise to us because we've been looking ahead at the HBO, docket. But cool to see the stuff confirmed. I will say I did not watch any of the stuff because of another topic that we'll talk about today, which is that I prefer to not be spoiled by trailers and teasers, which is, I feel, very commonplace at this point. Speaking of, we didn't mention this last night, but there is I would call it a spoiler in the inside the episode for the finale of House of the Dragon.
I haven't watched that,
so I would warn people away from watching that if you are perceptive enough to pick up on something that might be a bit of a spoiler. But yeah, I just feel like you have to be so careful, and so I did not watch any of it. But obviously, the thing I'm most excited for is The Last of Us. That was easily, I think, my favorite show of whatever year it came out.
Whoa, early 2022. Just, I think, hopefully we'll fact check. I think so. Taran, I'll tell you, I think you could. I mean, I don't want this, but don't watch it if you don't want to watch it. But I think you could. Wow, beginning of 2023. Yeah, it's 2024. Yeah, that makes sense. Early last year. I think you could watch the teaser trailer and it would give nothing away from any of the things, but don't watch it if you don't want to. But I really think people could go into this, and it's mostly just to get people excited that these things are coming back, not necessarily like what's going to be in there. Although I do know some people have already done the like screenshotted every image of the Last of Us teaser to be like, this is what this is from the video game. This is what this is. This is what this is. So, caution, your mileage may vary. I think interestingly, The Last of Us is the very last thing they put in, and it definitely has the most, I think, of anything in the trailer, Taran. So it's sort of, they build to, which does mean it is a 2025 release. My gut, I haven't really looked at the calendar on this, but my gut would say there's enough that they can fill Sunday night until the end of the year, and then basically put The Last of Us in the exact same spot it was in 2023, which is like the beginning of the year, which is where True Detective was this year. Which maybe Last of Us is probably bigger than that, and maybe it gets bumped into more of a spring summer show like House of the Dragon was. But I would imagine it comes pretty soon in 2025. But it was the last thing they left to be like like the credits where it's like it has this person and featuring this person. That's very much what the Last of Us thing felt like in the trailer. So it looks fun, Taran. Looks pretty fun.
It does. And I think that's, in terms of ratings, it really crushed season one. It's a returning show as opposed to some of the others that are like a bit newer. Obviously, White Lotus is going to be returning as well, which is very fun. But I don't actually know. Like, does White Lotus have the, it's obviously incredibly popular
White Lotus was
Um,
the first. Okay, so there's these three buckets, right? There's like HBO originals that are coming clearly this year,
mhm,
which includes stuff that I think will be Sunday night shows. Like Industry, I thought Interesting wasn't the first. The Penguin was the first thing they showed. Dune Prophecy, then Industry, and we know
right.
Industry like is starting next week. Josh and I will be recapping it here on Sunday nights with Jess here, sort of a Succession reunion. Jared, I know you're working your way through the show. Would love to have your thoughts as it's coming. Kit Harington joining the cast for season 3. So I think that's when it is interesting that they didn't sort of like lead off with it, and it's sort of a little bit buried. They go through sort of like there's like Hard Knocks and like a monkey documentary. Like I'm not even joking. Like they sort of round out this group. Then you have Max Originals, and then the 2025 HBO stuff, which starts with the White Lotus. And so I think that that's an indicator of just like how well it does. I do feel like it fits more in the Succession bucket, Taran, of like it is pretty popular, but I think it's probably more popular in our circles than it is to the general public, as opposed to something like Last of Us and the House of the Dragon, that I think do have, like, weirdly, the show about dragons and zombies. They do have a smidgen of a broader appeal. I think this is my guess, where Succession and White Lotus are like kind of like popular for being prestige
Yeah.
dramas that some people, like probably my parents, find a little pretentious, you know? So
Yeah.
I think that you would sort of fit it in that. It's more Succession than House of the, like, I think, you know, White Lotus is more like its Succession, and The Last of Us is more like its House of the Dragon, I think.
Yeah. What was your favorite? What are you looking forward to?
I mean, out of the things we haven't talked about yet, I definitely am interested in the Penguin. The Penguin was the first thing they showed. I just think this is so weird that Colin Farrell, I mean, the two things he's played this so far this year. I mean, we will not spoil Sugar, but I think if you look at Sugar and then now the Penguin, he's just wants to have fun, I think. So I'm pretty intrigued with that. I really like I loved the Batman movie. Obviously this will not be Matt Reeves directed, but if we're staying sort of in this world, I'm kind of intrigued by it. I also, like, when I went to the movies this past Friday, got the longest trailer I had actually watched for Joker, Fully Ado, and I'm like, all right, fine. I'm in. I just really do like this stuff. So pretty intrigued with that. And the Penguin was just immediately followed by Dune Prophecy, which, if people who listen to me on the PSR days, especially on Poster Recaps Theater and anything where I was like chatting with Philly, people will know how like immediately how hard I fell for the Dune world in terms of how much I just freaking loved it. And so I'm very excited for a Dune television show. So those are, I think, my highlights in terms of, like, I mean, the things we mentioned. I think The Last of Us, Night, The Seven Kingdoms. There were some highlights there, but kicking it off with those two, they're just sort of like such weird shows that are going to be on TV. The Penguin and Dune Prophecy.
I know. I'm just genuinely excited. I guess should we give maybe like a very brief summary of what we expect the shows to be?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And
Yeah,
then
that is
kind
a
of
good
like
idea.
land on it, because I just like what I'm excited for is that I really love having a at least one show that like captures my attention that I can like sit down. This is the show that I'm watching. I'm watching it, like I can look forward to it. And HBO is usually the network that gives me those shows. And it feels like, you know, we'll see about Industry, but like after Industry ends, there's nothing where I feel like there's a gap where I'm like, I don't really know about that show. Like I'm excited for like every one of these shows to at least check them out and hope that they're good. And that's very exciting for me. So let's give just like a quick rundown of what we can look forward to here.
I think if we go through this list to a degree, I think there's stuff that we certainly will be talking about, and probably one of the two of us watching. I think there's stuff we can immediately just be like, that won't be stuff we're watching. There's some stuff in this teaser trailer, Taran, that I will inform you about. So the Penguin being based on the DC comic book, based on the character Penguin. It's a spinoff of the Batman, obviously starring Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot, aka
Unrecognizable in the
Penguin.
role.
Super unrecognizable. He has maybe like, I don't know, less than 20 minutes of screen time in the Batman. I think he's sort of like, he's not the main villain of that movie. And yet he's in there. And then this will be his like rise to power.
This is like a crime drama set in the world of Batman.
We're in Gotham.
following the
Yeah.
Penguin, and it's HBO. Like, I think there's a lot going for this, and I'm pretty excited for the potential it has.
Yeah, Kristen Milotti, who you might know from like How I Met Your Mother, The
Mhm.
Wolf of Wall Street, Palm Springs. She was in The Resort, which I think was like pretty well received from people who I know watched it. She's going to be in it. Renzi Feliz, who was in Runaways, the Marvel show Runaways, hasn't really, I think, been in a ton of other stuff. Was in Encanto, actually. So that's sort of the cast. Yeah, yeah, superhero crime underworld stuff. I'm here for it. Let's see, give it a try. I really like Colin Farrell quite a bit. I think this is just such an unusual role for him to take and be in, but let's see.
All right, and then and we don't know the order in which they're airing yet.
We only know Industries next. We don't, and
Okay,
I don't know how many of these will even be Sunday night. Like I think some of these definitely maybe are not even their Sunday night show. We'll see. I think.
I guess.
So following that is Dune Prophecy, prequel
Mhm.
to Dune, set I think 10,000 years before the start of the film, Taran. And this is based on the Bene Gesserit, so the women who sort of have these like mind bending, controlling powers that can choose basically superhuman abilities. And I think we're basically going to get like whether or not they're sort of already established or whether or not the Bene Gesserit, you know, sort of how they get into power. This is what this show will be about. So 10,000 years before the start of Dune. Emily Watson, Olivia Williams. Olivia Williams was in the last season of The Crown. Travis Fimmel from Raised by Wolves, Taran. Mark
Mm.
Strong. Pretty fun cast here for Dune Prophecy. Yeah.
Very exciting. I assume you don't need to have watched the movies to see this either, given it's 10,000 years prior. So, basically, just like, I mean, I think the world building in Dune was one of my favorite parts of those movies, and so, again, given it's HBO, I kind of feel like I've got some optimism in terms of how they handle this. So, I'm excited for this one too.
Um, I'll say that both of these shows are run by women. So Lauren LaFranc is doing the Penguin, who got her sort of break, I think, on a show called Impulse, which I don't know much about, based on a book, and it's based on Jumper, I believe. It's a book in the Jumper universe. And then this is Allison Shapker, who has worked on like Fringe and Altered Carbon, Alias as well. So like has been in the sci-fi world a bunch. I believe maybe also wrote for Lost as well. So some sci-fi cred to come to Dune espionage, Dune Prophecy. Sorry. I don't know how much espionage will be in. Also, an executive producer for Westworld as well, so definitely in that space. Industry talked a little. I think we talked about that a lot. I think there'll be a little bit of a not quite a preview pod, but like sort of a. I'll be getting together with Jess to sort of like get you up to speed before next Sunday's premiere, and Josh and I will be recapping that. That's, I think, kind of it in the like stuff that's coming this year for HBO. They also had like Hard Knocks. There's a docuseries called Chimp Crazy, which is about chimpanzees. There's a show called The Franchise, which I couldn't quite tell whether this is like this is upcoming. It's Sam Mendes, who what is he did like Skyfall, he
Mhm.
directed, I think, and Spectre, American Beauty as well. And this is depicts the issues faced by a film crew in the production of a superhero film. I don't know. I don't. We'll see, Taran. I don't know if this is gonna do it for me, but we will see. It looks pretty on the nose in terms of like superhero satire, I think,
Mhm.
but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Not a bad cast. Billy Magnuson, Lolly Adefope, if you're a Taskmaster fan, Richard E. Grant, Hamish Patel from Station 11. Has an interesting cast. I just don't know if it's going to be quite up my alley content wise.
Mhm.
Taran, it's a show that I have not checked out. I'm gonna wager you have not, but people say really good things about this, which is Sex Lives of College Girls, is a Max
Yeah.
original that's coming back for season 3. I believe Jess is a big fan of Sex Lives of College Girls. I probably need to do some watching of the show because I've heard such good things. But this is a show that's coming for season 3 at some point, 2024 or 2025, I think.
Yes, I believe I've seen both seasons. I have.
Okay, great.
So I actually turns out I didn't remember this, but I preferred the second season.
Okay.
And I think it's a pretty fun show. I'm like it's just like it's a very good just comedy. It's like a fun thing to just kind of like turn on and enjoy. And that's coming from me when I've had some issues with like your classic kind of comedies lately. It's definitely like more dramedy, but it leans heavier comedy than dramedy. It's way more of a comedy than The Bear. So
It's created by Mindy Kaling, right? I think that's right. So yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
It's a good time. It's definitely it's like I don't think you're gonna like watch it and be like, this is terrible. It's just gonna be like a good time.
Okay.
So yeah.
Jess says it's an easy binge, and then the other thing Jess pointing
Yes.
out, this is interesting. RHAP, who kind of broke out in Mean Girls, which is because I feel like the movie wasn't that successful, but she kind of became a star from that movie. She has been a lead, but is now recurring for season 3, which maybe is a bit of a bummer for folks in terms of who might be going to that show, knowing it's a RHAP show. So maybe if that's you, you know, uh, spend what
I mean,
yeah.
she's good on it, but it really is an ensemble. I don't
Okay.
really feel like there's a super weak point. So I feel like I'm not super worried about losing her, honestly.
Okay, interesting. Okay, not much else in the Max thing. A couple of animated shows, including Harley Quinn. So I don't think much to say. I mean, maybe I'm slagging off I'm being an animation. The opposite of Defender. But that was kind of it in that section. I will say there was one thing in the HBO Originals piece that's coming this year, which is looks like there's a it's called The Wise Guys, which looks to be a Sopranos like documentary about the making of The Sopranos, which that looked kind of interesting. So just flag that. All right, in 2025 we have kicked off with The White Lotus. You talked about mentioning The White Lotus a little bit. I definitely think it is popular. I don't know that it's like I don't know how much of it's watched, but I think the compelling piece of The White Lotus is that you could tell people to jump in at any time and not really needing to know. Looks like they're heading to Thailand this time, and I'm pretty excited. Parker Posey's here. I'll see if I can find who else is going to be headlining the cast. Have you been a White Lotus person, Taran? It's Mike White.
Yeah, I was like kind of lukewarm on season 1, but I really liked season 2. And for me, I feel like I'm blanking on the name, but I feel like they just announced what's his name from Justified.
Yeah. Oh, this is so bad. I don't know his name. His name is Timothy Oliphant.
No, the other one.
Oh man, Walton Goggins.
Walton Goggins. I feel like they just. I feel like I saw some Walton Goggins in the White Lotus news. Yes, it's not recent, I should say, but like he is going to be in season 3 of the White Lotus, and that is very exciting to me.
Yes, and there is some Survivor. Obviously, I mentioned Mike White. Every season does have at least someone from Survivor. David versus Goliath. Is that right? That's the season he was on. That is right. And Natalie Cole and Carl Boudreaux will be appearing in this season. So kind of fun for us reality fans. And it definitely does have, I feel like this is not my take. This is, I believe, maybe a Rob Cesarino take, that you can definitely feel the Survivor in the White Lotus, where like every episode often ends like where they're all having dinner at the resort in a way that feels very tribal council-esque, even if someone is not voted. Kind of we vote someone off at the beginning, which is the murder aspect of the White Lotus. And you have to imagine in this season they're going to be like, all right, enough death at the at the White Lotus franchise. I wonder how much of a role that will play this time, but it's a very fun cast. Yeah, Walton Goggins, Carrie Coon. I forgot Carrie Coon is going to be in this. Michelle Monaghan, Jason Isaacs, Parker Posey. It's a very fun cast. I'm very excited for the White Lotus. Seemingly not this year, which I kind of would have thought maybe it was coming this year, but it's definitely in the and coming in 2025 section, Taran.
Yeah. Is that about it? Great.
There's the Gilded Age and Welcome to Derry, I think, are the other two ones that
Okay.
I would say. So the Gilded Age, sort of a sleeper hit, I think. People who seemed to, it felt like people were sort of out on it. And then people were watching season 2 and being like, oh, actually it's great, I think. So I sort of bailed midway through season 1. Jess is booing in the chat. Jess is not a Gilded Age fan. But I'm gonna watch it because it did also get nominated for some Emmys. So I'm going to be watching that, and then season 3 returns next year, and then Welcome to Derry, which I'm just, again, sort of same in the vein of Dune and the Penguin, being like, let's just do an It franchise show. I did notice it's now called Welcome to Derry, and they're calling, I think, It Chapter 3 after the 2 movies. So that's a little interesting to me in terms of the branding they've chosen. Could be because Welcome to Derry would imply that some of the Derry girls would be in the show, which I will be furious if none of them show up. So
Yeah.
that's just me. Yeah.
That's exciting to me. I mean, I'm all in for an HBO horror show. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple other shows in there that, like, there's one called Duster in the Pit. I really don't know what these are, but, like, we'll see if they're anything. And then obviously A Night of the Seven Kingdoms also got like the teensiest trailer, which is the Game of Thrones spin-off set 100 years, basically halfway in between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, which should be fun, should come out next year. Will come out next year, as they've said. So yeah.
All right. Well,
there's a lot. There's a lot, Taryn.
There's a lot. There's a lot, and I'm excited for much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I wanted to bring up here, and we don't have to spend too long on it, but it's not scripted, but the Olympics are happening.
The Olympics are not scripted?
I mean, who knows? But what was interesting to me about this, so I've been sick over the weekend. And that meant that I had nothing to do but lay on the couch and watch live feeds, except the live feeds were a little bit dull. And so additionally, I was watching some Olympics, especially in prep for the climbing that had just started on Monday this week. And I'm very, very excited about that. But what intrigued me is that people have been talking about how good the experience is on Peacock. And that they're really enjoying this like method of watching the Olympics. And I've also seen some articles about how the ratings for the Olympics are up. NPR says 79% over Tokyo, and they'd been down in Tokyo, which makes some sense because it was delayed a year and it was a little off in that way. But I feel like overall there's just been a lot of good buzz around the Olympics and the way that you're able to watch them. And for me, at least, I'm enjoying it because, like, they've got things like a multi-view where there's like 4 different cameras showing 4 different sports at the same time, and you hover over, you get the audio for each sport, and that is exactly up my alley as a live feeder. Like, there's very much a like live kind of coverage feeling to how they're showing the Olympics. There's even, I think one of the big ones is the Gold Zone, where they will do that for you. They will like switch to the live events for you around. But it's that feeling of actually being live and like covering multiple things at the same time that I think that like typical primetime coverage does not quite get you that feeling. And I think it's really working, especially because it coordinates with the streaming environment and modern technology. And it's interesting to me that the Olympics are able to tap into this thing that does feel very Big Brother, and to great success as well.
Is America like cutting the live when there's like a fight or a close thing? Are they cutting the Gold Zone? Let's see. No, they're not doing it. No.
I mean, there are commercials occasionally.
Oh man. I am Canadian. We do not have Peacock in Canada, so I've not had the pleasure of viewing Gold Zone, but I've heard such good things about it. I've basically just sort of had the Olympics on in the background while I work all day. That's sort of been my go-to. There's been some fun Canada stuff where this is not typically our, we kind of shine in the Winter Olympics, but there was some fun drama, not fun, kind of sucked, but the women's soccer was quite interesting. So there's some stuff to watch. It is kind of a delight to have it on all day. And I do think streaming is sort of capitalizing on something about the Olympics. There's so much happening, obviously, that trying, even for me, like there is the thing of like, oh yeah, like I'll put on the Olympics, and then I like sort of randomly get sucked into like watching skateboarding or whatever happened, gymnastics today or whatever. But being able to like have the option of both having your viewing experience tailored to you or being able to search what you look for, I think is great. I also do think there is something that's great about the time zone shift. I know some people like kind of do prefer it when it's over here, but I think the benefit to this is like from what I've seen a lot of times, like if the Olympics, like I don't tend to watch it a lot at night, but if it like when I was up at my parents, it would be on and they would sort of just like replay the thing, even though we might know the results in a way that I actually think makes a lot of sense. There's some study, Taran, I read one time, and I don't think there's like a ton of data to support this, but something about that being spoiled on something actually sometimes improves your enjoyment of the thing, which obviously is, I think people have very strong opinions about spoilers. So it's not, a theory we will start imbuing into Tastemakers. We will very clearly let you know when something's being spoiled. But the idea is like, if you do know the outcome of something, you can kind of watch it with an intention of like knowing where it's going. And I think that's different if there's like a twist to the thing versus if it's kind of like, it's not that important that if you know what sort of happens. Like I think a lot of people were watching Presumed Innocent this season, like with the knowledge of like knowing what happened from the books, and then they had this experience that was different than if you didn't know. And so I actually wonder, just like with people sort of like, okay, well I know Simone Biles is going to win gold, but now I'm going to sit down and like watch the routine that makes her win gold. I think it's really interesting from like a sports dynamic that is so antithetical, I think, to a lot. I think once people feel like sports has been spoiled for them, they don't typically watch. But it seems like people are not only watching during the day, but then sort of like watching the televised replays of like the big moments where they might even know their country wins a medal.
I think it can depend on what the sport is and how much you
100%.
understand it. Also, like for instance, I am desperately trying to avoid climbing spoilers because
Right.
like I deeply understand the
Right.
competition.
Right.
But like gymnastics, I don't understand at all.
Or how
And
long.
so
I don't think you want to like, I don't think I'm going to be like, well, I know Canada's going to lose this game, but I shall sit down for a 90-minute soccer match, like I think there's a bit between like, yeah, I'll
yes.
watch Simone Biles' gymnastics routine,
Right. And I also like I don't want like the 100-meter dash spoiled for me. But because I can watch it in 10 seconds. But
Right.
like if it's like, hey, this pole vaulter had a funny thing happen,
It was a pretty
um
funny thing that happened to the pole vaulter,
then I'm like,
Taran. It
okay,
was.
I know I should be watching this. So I think it can go back and forth. There is a clip feature, like top clipped moments, and they do say what the clip is as you go to them. And for those, I'm kind of like, I wish they didn't do that because the clips are like 6 minutes max. And so like you might I
Right.
already know now that this is an important moment. You don't need to tell me what it is ahead of time. You don't need to like convince me to watch this. It's just a montage of these clips. But
Interesting.
either way, I think it's very interesting, and I'm very like drawn in by how they're showing the Olympics. I've never been an Olympics person. I was only going to watch for climbing this year, but I was really enjoying spending my time on Peacock watching the Olympics. So, but
Social
speaking
media
of,
has loved some people. Taran, Pommel horse guy, if you know what Pommel horse guy. There's obviously a lot of boxing controversy we don't need to get into. There is the pole vaulter guy who had a bit of a viral moment, who might now have a sponsorship deal for some underwear that will help keep everything in place, so he doesn't lose pole
listen, I
vaulting
want these
because of.
athletes to get the bag. They are not like like NFL players. Like these athletes don't always make a ton of money. So
Yes. Yes.
anything that they can do to capitalize, if they want to do photo shoots with Parmesan cheese or
Go for
get
it.
underwear sponsorships, good on them.
100%.
But yes, I think we wanted to talk briefly about speaking of spoilers.
Yeah.
Um, that this whole idea of like trailer spoilers, because what I will tell you is that I watched Abigail over the weekend.
Yes.
One movie that I was looking forward to watching, that I did see the trailer to because I saw it in theaters. I didn't
Yeah.
know that I shouldn't be watching it. Very
Yeah.
much a movie. I kind of assumed they give away so much in the trailer that surely you're supposed to know this. Then I watched the movie, and let me tell you, like a half hour went by,
That's a long time.
and it was like they still haven't dropped this reveal. And I
Yeah.
really felt like, wow, I really shouldn't have known this. My enjoyment of this movie would have been dramatically better if I hadn't known this. And so what I will tell you is if you somehow have not seen the trailer for Abigail, or quite frankly, the poster for Abigail,
Oh yeah.
go in as blind as you can. I think it was an otherwise fairly fun little horror movie. But this uh, occurred to me because you also brought up a movie that you recently watched that you felt also was spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the movie Trap, a new M. Night Shyamalan movie, and the trailer completely tells you about what happens in the movie. And then I was chatting with my good friend Ariel about movies. I was on the Crying Laughing podcast talking about all sorts of summer movies. I was like, I'm so excited for this one. And I think I also kind of got in my head of like, thinking about like, okay, well, they told me a twist, so will there be another twist? And just like thinking about that, I the reaction to everything I've seen to the movie is that everybody except for me just had an absolute blast, and I did not have a blast. I was like,
I mean, honestly,
very
it's been
much
a while since
irritated.
I've heard people saying they had a blast at an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so that's kind of surprising.
And I liked Knock at the Cabin. So, like, don't say I don't, I haven't enjoyed him. I think M. Night Shyamalan is actually pretty underrated. I like Village. I like Signs. I like, obviously, The Sixth Sense. There's a bunch. I think even think Old is interesting. So, like, don't come for me. But I really didn't. I'm not on the same wavelength with people at all. But I also wonder how much there. So expectations is the thing that I think is really tough. And I feel like in some ways here, we might be contributing to it of being like, I hope actually people now go watch House of the Dragon, or like, I heard it was bad, but maybe I'll still watch it. And then they're like, that wasn't bad at all. Like it was
I hope
actually, I
so.
thought that was great. And
I
so
think
we like,
knowing what to expect will actually really improve your watch of season 2 of House of the Dragon, and I definitely do think it's worth watching.
I totally agree, but I think maybe my own expectations for Trap were set too high that I just was not happy during the movie and sort of actively bored. And I kind of felt a little bit of what they were going for, but I mostly just thought like it really wasn't working for me. And then I came out and everyone was like, no, this was so much fun. And that's, I'm really happy that people had a fun time because I did not. I thought it was about 20 minutes worth of plot that was stretched out to an hour and 50 minutes is really how
That's
I felt.
that's pretty classic horror, to be fair.
That is, yeah, pretty classic horror. But it's just, and I'm like, but I don't know. I don't know how we like. I don't think there's a way to fix like because people come out of something and be like, that was great, and then you go and watch it and you're like, I think it was that. Oh, that was that was fine. And I don't know because we contribute to it of like telling people whether or not you should go see it and whether we think it's good and whether we think it's bad or it's not worth checking out, and then people see it. So it's just a very interesting conversation. But I definitely feel like there's this added thing too of like, and one thing I want to talk about like in terms of Abigail and Trap both feeling like the marketing spoiled it. I think Ariel was actually talking about this week that his thing was about Deadpool and Wolverine, which he had heard that often the people who make the movie are then actually not super in charge of marketing the movie,
Yeah.
which I thought is a big miss about Deadpool and Wolverine, that it's very much like I feel like the marketing and the atmosphere was like it's going to save the MCU, and actually what it was like a love letter to Fox and the ending of sort of the Fox era of MCU movies. And that would have been so much better, but it's something in the market, like when it goes over to the marketing team, they're like, doesn't really matter what's in the movie. We just mostly have to get people to go see it. And let's say what we need to do that in a way that I think like both of these movies, Abigail and Trap, are really hurt by the fact that like they do have to market the movie in some way to get people to go see it. And they made the bet that revealing things about the plot of the movie is beneficial to get people to go see the movie in a way that like, well, who cares if you have an amazing twist if nobody sees the movie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, at least I honestly like the thing I mostly took away is like I'm not gonna look up anything about Trap. I'm just gonna watch it, essentially.
Don't look up anything about Trap, and don't, if you haven't seen anything about Abigail, don't look that up either. I'm trying to think if there's anything else recently that you shouldn't go look up, but I think those are kind of like the two that I feel the most of like, man, I really wish I didn't see that trailer.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
really
in
hard
general,
going to the movies this much.
again, like in general, I'd like to not look things up about trailers, teasers. I try to go in as blind as I can. But I do like to know if it's good or not, if people think it's good or not, because while that does technically like impact my perception going in, I feel like I am pretty good at like being either, well, I disagree, I like this, or like oh, this isn't as good as I've heard. But
Can
um
yeah. Can I this just so we're on movies, Taran, I'm very excited. There's a movie called Cuckoo. I think that's how you Cuckoo. I think it's she's trans. That's why Hunter Schafer
Hunter Schafer.
is her name, starring in Cuckoo. I'm very excited for this movie. But I think interestingly, there's another movie that gets released wide this weekend. And Taran, you are a bit of a video
Stevens in
game.
that one too.
You're a bit of a video game person, and this weekend has I think maybe the strangest movie of 2024, which is Borderlands the movie comes out this weekend, which has Kate Blanchett in it and a bunch of other people. Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Jamie Lee Curtis is in this movie. I've heard nothing about this movie. Nothing. Like,
it is Eli Roth.
Bad, right? This would be bad, right?
I've heard I've heard mixed things already, so I'm not.
Well, if we tell everybody it's bad, then when they go see it, they'll be like, "That wasn't bad."
I wouldn't go in expecting high cinema. I think it's going to be at best like a very fun kind of like Fallout-esque. Like I think Fallout the TV series is probably its high mark. And it probably won't hit that, but we'll see.
Kate Blanchett is in this movie. Kate Blanchett is in Borderlands the movie. I mean, make your money, Kate. Make as much money as you want, but I don't know. I guess I'm gonna go see Borderlands. But I to be fair, my brother loves Borderlands. I've never played. I played Borderlands with my brother occasionally. He'd be like, "Let's play multiplayer," and then I get bored by it. Have you Borderlands before, Taran?
I did play some Borderlands.
You like it?
It's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Very quickly then, one final thing. I will say, I still want to talk about Those About to Die. We'll maybe talk about that next week.
I'll watch as much as I can before next week, and then we can have a chat about it, I think.
Cool. And then I have been watching some more of Industry, which will be coming up next week on HBO. We'll start season 3. And Grace and Josh are going to be covering it. I am not caught up, so I will not, and it's also like not exactly my cup of tea so far, so
yeah.
So they're going to be covering it. I may pop in if I catch up and I'm liking it, but basically I'm close to the end of season 1, and it really is just like, you know, I think it leans too much into, if the pitch line is it's Succession meets Euphoria, it's a little too Euphoria to me and not enough Succession.
I think that's fair.
I would like more Succession and not as much Euphoria.
So Jess, I think, is almost cut up as well. I'd be interested for Jess' thoughts, which is, I think that season 2 balances it better than season 1. So that's how I feel. They introduce some, I feel like they like kind of trim a little bit. I think my problem with it that we both vibed on was like, I think there's too much going on in season 1, and there are very interesting people that I just wish like we were just hanging out with them. And and then in season 2, I think that they find that balance better. I think the other thing that I've seen a lot of people talk about the show is they feel like they don't understand what's going on. And I think that that's totally fair to feel like that. And also I think the show has, from what I've seen from watching 2 seasons, has no intention of feeling like they ever want to explain that. They want you to be in a moment. And I'm just trying to get people to be like, okay, like I want people to feel like how you're feeling, which is like, don't really worry about it. Well, yeah, Jess is saying I only understood one thing, that's because I watched the GameStop movie. They definitely do go into some GameStop.
I feel like it's pretty easy. I feel like it's pretty easy to like pick up on context in terms of like what is a massive mistake, what is a good thing.
100%. There's a moment in season 1 that I felt like was like jaw dropping to me, Taran, where it's like there's literally a number going down on the screen. I'm like, oh, that's so bad. And I didn't really know what that meant. But I sort of looked at like my promise to folks as they join us for season 2 is that certainly I've done a lot of research to figure out like what do they do here, what are they actually doing, which I think I have a good understanding of, and then the context of the show. But I don't think you should feel like as you're watching it, people need to like, but I don't understand it. I think they do a good job of making you feel like this is the vibes of the moment and whether it's good or bad. And then I definitely think that idea of like the balance between Euphoria and Succession, I think it's never Succession. Like it's not Succession in the way that like Succession was so businessy and so caught up in like, who will lead this company, who will do this? Like, it's definitely about their work, but I will never be Succession as something that do not put that on the poster for Industry season 3. I still think it's very good. I think they find the balance better in season 2, and I'm interested based on where they leave off of how they'll do that heading into season 3. I just want to vibe check Jess on that, whether or not Jess feels like that's the case into season 2. And Jess, feel free to be like, I'm so wrong. You can even pop on if you want, but
I will only be here for one moment. Yeah, I agree. I feel like season 2 has less sex scenes. I feel like they're very gratuitous in season 1. I feel like they pull back on it a bit in season 2.
Okay.
But I will say season 2 is like missing a dynamic I really enjoyed in season 1.
Okay, interesting.
Without spoiling anything, I will just say that. But yeah, it doesn't matter if you understand the business. I didn't understand any of the business in Succession or in Billions. I got by on music cues and facial reactions, baby. That's all you need.
That's right. All right. That was a good gut check vibe for me, Jess, just to make sure. So thank you.
Yeah, so I plan to keep watching because I do want to check out. I've heard good things already about season 3 from critics who have watched it. So I think it seems like the kind of show that might be like improving over time. And so I'm gonna keep pushing through, trying to watch as much as I can, and then of course there'll be plenty of discussion to be had about Industry season 3 very soon. And that I think is what we have for you.
You told me I'm watching more of The Bear. Are you done with the Bear? Is it
I'll keep pushing on The Bear too.
Okay, all right.
You know,
good to hear. Good to hear.
Just listen. Now I'm watching the Olympics, so like it's even there's a lot of things. We told
Josh and I were like, I don't know, you need to watch anymore. And then I was like, but then I was so interested whether or not, like, as someone who has not been loving it, whether you would or would not like season 3. So I'm like intrigued if you do, but please don't feel any pressure. It's just very fun to be like the show that I feel like sort of has a little bit of like the mantle of like, maybe it's the best show, although not after season 3. And you're like, the seasons everybody liked. I don't know, man. I don't know. So it's kind
maybe I'll like the ones that people don't like. Who knows?
I know. That's what I want to know.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you then. Of course, we'll be back next week to talk more Tastemakers, talk more TV, movies, whatever else is going on. Again, I would like to talk a little bit about those about to die. Industry will be starting up soon. Check out all of our Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon coverage. We're going to be doing a book club soon, and perhaps some more bonus House of the Dragon stuff coming your way as well. So stay tuned for all of that. Anything else, Grace?
I did join. I mentioned earlier, but I was on the Crying Laughing podcast. Basically, did like a summer movie catch up with Ariel. It was very fun. It only gets unhinged like probably 4 minutes into the podcast. So check that out. And I think at some point there'll be a crime scene episode that gets released if it has not been already, where I joined them, where they literally said, "We're sorry for making you watch maybe one of the worst things we've ever watched on crime scene." So you can look forward to that. I'll have to teach them how to have some taste, Taran, over there. But
boy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you then. Thank you all so much for joining us here today, and we will see all of you next time.